Hello, good people of YouTube. Mountbatten here, and today we are discussing one of my personal favorite ships in game. A ship that most definitely draws in a ton of players for the game, but a ship that is fighting the good fight against all the changes that keep coming to the game and how the game keeps evolving, and it might just be starting to lose that fight. And the ship we're talking about today is none other than the Tier 10 techline Japanese battleship, the Yamato. So the Yamato is a ship that I've talked about quite a bit here on the channel, as it is one of my personal favorite ships in game. You might think that, my most played ship would be like the GK, because I love brawling, I love the mid to close range combat, and GK is most certainly up there, but she's not my most played ship. This right here is the Yamato. So, why do so many others and myself enjoy this ship, or at least grind this ship out? Well, the Yamato is the quintessential, English is hard, battleship, right? It's got massive main battery guns, 18.1-inch guns, it's got a ton of armor, and even with all the changes and new additions to the game in terms of ships, she still is one of the better armored battleships in the game with that 57mm deck. There's not a whole lot that can get through that. So you've got some crazy plunging fire going on with battleship caliber guns at range, or some ungodly HE penetration. You're not getting through that deck armor, which is one of the things that makes the Yami so darn tanky. On top of that too, her armor is just the way it's set up, the angles and such. It's very good for not eating penetration at range. Like mid-range out, the Yami is an incredibly tanky ship, which is where she's best played from as well, because of her large caliber guns and the Japanese gun characteristics. That's where you're having the most fun in the Yami and doing the most damage. Speaking of the guns, the other main reason why so many players want the ship and what else makes it a quintessential battleship is that you get the 9 460mm guns, 18.1 inches, which with the way that the game works, this gives you the ability to overmatch 32mm of armor, which is the last major armor threshold in the game. Now, most cruisers want their HE to be able to penetrate this thickness of armor, because this gives them consistent pins, because they can pin the bow stern of every high tier ship. What this allows the Yami's AP to do is simply ignore that armor, and the Yami can just go right through the bow of the stern of most of your higher tier ships, with the exception of those that have like those icebreaker bows. But even then, there's usually 32mm strips somewhere in there that her 18.1-inch shells can find a way through. That of course gives the Yami the ability to get good consistent penetration damage in bow on ships, and in a lot of cases cases right through that armor and find that citadel, right? So, couple that with the fact that the Yami also has 2.1 Sigma on these 18.1-inch guns, yeah, this thing's a real club when the dispersion doesn't screw you over too much, which is the balancing factor when it comes to these 18.1-inch guns. The Japanese battleship dispersion pattern is very odd. It's this weird, like, 5-pointed star pattern that leads to some very frustrating salvos every now and then with the Yami's guns, but with the 2.1 Sigma, you usually have a good, nice, tight group that's landing somewhere near the center point of your aim. So, you're landing a couple of good shots in each salvo, but, every now and then you do get some absolutely wild salvos out of the main battery gun. So that's what makes the Yami great. She's got great armor for medium to long range. She's got big guns with decent to good dispersion depending upon how RNG feels about you. And you can take the unique upgrade that can actually make your dispersion a whole hell of a lot better. That's the good. What's the bad? What's the balancing factors about the Yami? Well, she's slow. 27.5 knots is her top speed. Used to be 28.1, but apparently some documents were uncovered that revealed that the Yami's real top speed was 27.5 knots, so that got nerfed. And she's incredibly immaneuverable. She is an absolute slug when it comes to turning. Her turrets take 7 years to turn. They have among the worst turret rotation rates in the game. I mean, hey, you got massive 18.1-inch guns, so yeah, you definitely need to think about where your guns need to be in the Yami when you're maneuvering, and get them headed there far before you even start turning in that general direction. Also, the AA is not great. I mean, None of the Japanese battleships really have overly good AA, right? But the Yami is definitely not the one that's breaking that trend, if you catch what I'm saying. So, she's slow. The armor is also terrible from medium range in. Most of you should be familiar with the Yamato cheeks. If you're not familiar with the Yamato cheeks, with that citadel that gives you great protection at range, at closer range, the angles of that armor leave some spots that are pokeable by anything with decent AP. Basically, if you encounter a bow in a Yami, if you can get a little bit to its side and shoot right behind the number 2 turret, you can citadel it. You can do the same thing from the rear, aim right below the number 3 turret from, like a 45-degree angle, let's say, and you can citadel it all day, every day, if you get close enough to one right. So that's her downside. She's slow, she's got bad armor from close range, terrible turret traverse, bad AA. And that's the formula that the Yami's been dealing with for years, right? And for the most part, the ship's been pretty much solid in terms of her performance in random battles because, hey, it's best played from medium to long range. Everyone loves camping, especially nowadays, so yeah, it's a ship that is good at that. However, as the years have gone by, we have seen, not exactly a small influx of ships that do this too. But think about today. If you were going to play a medium to long range battleship in game, what would you want to take? You got like the Bungo with her 10 457mm guns. That has a lot of guns to be throwing at targets from across the map, and you get the spotter with the what's it called? The improved optics or whatever. So you get the 10% buff to your dispersion when you have that spotter up, right? So now you have very accurate 10, 15-inch guns for the duration of that spotter plane. You got the Vermont with friggin' 12 457mm 18-inch guns, right? That's a whole hell of a lot of shells going at your target, and we've seen Vermont absolutely just god-slap ships off the map. And if you want to talk about premium ships, if you got a Thunderer, that's like the sniper's wet dream, right? Accurate 18-inch guns that can overmatch 30 millimeters of armor, because again, they're 457mm guns, right? So you can just absolutely drill citadels with that. And even if you can't overmatch their armor, you have British BBHE that's, again, equally as accurate. So you can swap to that and burn things down. Granted, that ship isn't available anymore. So forth and so on. There's plenty of ships now at higher tier that do what the Yami does, but don't really have a lot of the downsides because they give up that 32mm overmatch. Now, if we want to talk about super ships too, of course, you have the Satsuma there. It literally does what the Yamato does, but better. It is a super ship, right? And you get the 20-inch guns this time. And you have the funny button that can give you the boost to your dispersion for a shot or two. So, yeah. Then, of course, you have the main, which just proves if you bolt enough guns to something, it's great at, well, anything, right? Now, keep in mind, too, that these ships, they have better characteristics in some categories than the Yami, because again, they give up that 32mm overmatch because they don't have 18.1-inch guns. They have 457mm 18-inch guns, which 3mm makes all the difference in the world of wargaming, right? So because of that, they're more maneuverable. They have better heals or better characteristics that make them a lot more playable in today's World of Warships. Which, think about the way that you normally play a Yami. You normally play it either you're in the second or the third line from your team, meaning you're not right up there on the front line with like the destroyers and the light cruisers and the cruisers and such. You're usually sitting toward the back, again, that on that second string or way in the back, if you want to deal with the flight time of the shells, right? Well, nowadays we got submarines that are just terrible to deal with in the Yami because you're slow, and they're not because submarine, right? They have homing torpedoes, and you're this massive slow battleship that you do have the 2-kilometer dehoming range, right? But still, you're a very sluggish battleship, something that probably most submarines wouldn't really even need to use homing torpedoes on. They can use the dummy-guided torpedoes, and they'll just bully you that way. And yeah, you do have the excellent torpedo damage reduction that the Yami gets, but considering how fast the torpedoes reload on most submarines, not sure that's really enough to keep you around for an extended period of time when dealing with most submarines. Then, of course, too, you've got, the Dutch cruisers now. The Utrecht line and the Goldenloo line with the airstrikes that, like the Utrecht, I mean, friggin' 14-kilometer airstrikes, you could be sitting pretty much outside of Yami's detection range and be dropping airstrikes on top of the Yami player consistently, and of course, well out of your detection range as well. Trump's a pretty miserable thing to try and deal with the Yami because, well, I mean, like, it can literally be stealth dropping you from, I mean, what's the Trump's detection range? 7.1 kilometers, something like that? Yeah, that's kind of suckish to deal with on a ship that is quite slow. And yeah, sure, its deck is great for dealing with the bombs because they can't penetrate the deck, but I mean, they're going to be setting fires on you left, right, and center because of how fast, their airstrikes reload. And then, of course, you want to talk about, like, Super CVs, trying to deal with Super CVs in a Yami. I mean, God, that just sucks because your AA is terrible, you're a big, slow-moving target, and, CVs already were bullying you. Now you have to deal with Super CVs on top of all that. And again, compare that to other tier 10 ships that have better tools to deal with those scenarios. Like, yeah, the Vermont's friggin' slow at 21 knots, right? But at least it's got the improved acceleration where it can giddy up and go pretty dang fast, throw off the airstrikes or perhaps juke the planes. And it has DFAA on top of that as well. Again, it doesn't do much, but it's at least something. And the Vermont, of course, does have at least American AA, not Japanese AA on top of that, right? I mean, it's just like, dang, the ship has been through so much, and, like, nothing has changed on. I mean, this ship is as old as the game, right? The Yami line and the Montana line were the first two battleship lines in the game. They've been there since, I believe, the beta, and maybe the alpha too. I wasn't there back in the day, but they've been there since essentially the start, right? And the Montana, at least it's got that improved heel now, but the Yami's got nothing. You can look at its change logs, and nothing has changed in this ship in so many years. Even the last thing they did to it was, besides, of course, like updating the model, they do update the model every now and then because it is one of the three big ships that draws people into the game, right? The Yami, the Iowa, and the Bismarck. Those are the three ships, every naval nerd has heard about and, of course, want to play. So it is still a popular ship. You're still going to see it, everywhere in game because of that, but nothing really has changed about it too much. So, funny enough, I'm looking at the changelog here. The last thing that was changed about the Yami in terms of, like, its in-game performance is that its AA was slightly buffed from having a continuous damage rating from 851 to 955 per second, which is, I believe, when they updated her to have her 10-go AA, so she has a handful of more AA guns on the ship, and that's it. So, wow, what a buff, right? So it's just crazy that, the ship has gone this long, has been through so many changes in-game, and Wargaming hasn't changed anything about it. Now, of course, you can say, well, that's a testament to the design of the ship. And sure, I do think it is. I mean, this is a 10-year-old ship that has undergone minor changes throughout the years, but we're at a point to where the game has changed so much since the ship was first introduced that I don't know if it's going to be able to keep up with this for too much longer, because now, think about the last 3 years in game. How many large caliber battleships we've seen added at higher tier. It's been a lot, right? In terms of techline ships and premium ships. So now we're at the point where we have super ships in game. We have a whole hell of a lot of 457mm gun battleships at tier 10 and tier 9. To where the Yami is kind of losing her identity and becoming less and less relevant with each update when ships like this are added to the game. And of course, all the other gimmicky things that we're getting in game that, again, aren't really fantastic for the Yami to deal with. It's like, I can definitely see why, when you look at the ship in terms of like its use in competitive play, it's not picked at all, because why deal with all the downsides of the Yami when you give up the 32mm overmatch? You can get stuff like the Vermont that can just god slap cruisers and even most battleships out of the match, because again, what are you going to do against 12 457mm shells? You're going to eat most of the damage that it's tossing at you, right? So for things like that, I mean, it's like, dang, when you sit back and look at it, it's just no wonder the ship's not picked more for things like that. But it's still popular in randoms because, again, it's one of the big three that draws players in. And I think it's still solid right now for random battles, but I don't know, going forward, how much longer it's going to be able to maintain that spot. And of course, if you look at its stats are absolutely cooked because, like, And not in a good way, because again, it's one of the big three that everyone wants to play. It's got like a gajillion battles played in it, so its stats just kind of stuck. I still think it's a solid ship for randoms, but I'm just not sure how much longer it's going to be able to maintain its Yamato-ness. There is like one guy at Wargaming that just turns down, every single suggestion to add in another 18.1 inch gun battleship or above at tier 10 in the tech line. Because we've seen in premium ships, they've added in, 20-inch gun battleships in the premium ship slot, but they have never introduced another single 18.1 inch gun battleship in the tier 10 premium slot. The closest thing is, of course, the Musashi at tier 9, which is the sister ship to the Yami. So that guy is like Yami's biggest defender, right? Just trying to keep that one bit of uniqueness for her, because that's what's keeping her in the fight, is the ability to just ignore that 32 millimeter armor threshold, right? That's what's keeping her unique. And the second that goes, there's zero reason to play the ship anymore, even in random battles. Again, I still play it because I enjoy the ship, I enjoy the historical aspect about it, and it does have that 32 millimeter overmatch. But the second, another ship comes in with that, it doesn't have to deal with all the downsides of the Yami. I mean, there you go. Again, people are still going to play it because it's the Yami, right? Because of that, while I do think the ship is slowly losing relevance, with each patch, I do think it's, of course, always going to show up in Matchmaker. And it's just, it's nice to see a historical ship that's been around for this long in-game that is still this popular, right? And still, good enough to the point to where it can still be played in today's World of Warships. So guys, let me know what you guys think about the Yami. I just thought I'd take a look back at it. We talked about it on the Salt Ships and Scuttlebutt podcast this week, so I figured, I'd just take a look at it, play it more than I normally do during the week and see how it's doing. So guys, let me know what you guys think in the comments down below about the Yami. Are you in agreement with me that, yeah, it's losing relevance, but it's still a good ship in today's World of Warships, or still playable, I should say, in today's World of Warships? Or do you think there's absolutely no point into playing the Yami at all in any setting in today's World of Warships? Let me know that and all in the comments down below. Hope you guys have a wonderful Friday, wonderful rest of your week. I hope to catch you guys in the next one.